They don't shove you, they don't scream, they don't demand. They rush you, and that's what makes it so dangerous. Because rushing doesn't feel like aggression, it feels like urgency, like helpfulness, like someone trying to save you time. And if you're over 60, that urgency often comes wrapped in concern, in charm, in phrases like, "Don't worry, I'll handle it. You don't need to read all that. Just sign here, it's standard." And those words, delivered with confidence and speed, bypass your clarity, your questions, your right to pause. And slowly, you begin to feel like asking for time is foolish, like reading the fine print is outdated, like trusting your instincts is inconvenient. But it's not. Rushing is not respect, it's control, and it shows up everywhere. In banks where clerks slide papers across the desk with a pen already uncapped. In hospitals where doctors speak in clipped sentences and expect instant decisions. In family conversations where your children say, "Just do it, Mom," without explaining. In tech updates that demand you click accept before you've even understood what's changing. In online purchases where timers tick down and discounts disappear if you hesitate. And for seniors who may already feel overwhelmed by change, by complexity, by the pace of modern life, rushing becomes a weapon, not a kindness. It bypasses thought, bypasses consent, bypasses dignity. And the tragedy is that many elders give in, not because they don't care, but because they don't want to be seen as slow, as difficult, as incapable. But you are not incapable. You are experienced, thoughtful, and entitled to time. She was one of those women, deliberate, wise, careful, who had spent her life reading every line before signing anything, who had raised children, managed a household, survived loss, built resilience, and now, in her 70s, she deserved more time. Not less, more explanation. Not less, more respect. Not less. But the world around her had started moving faster than her comfort allowed, and it began with small things. The delivery boy asking her to sign quickly on a digital screen she couldn't read, the bank clerk urging her to just click accept on a new policy update, the neighbor who offered to help with her online shopping but insisted she trust him and not worry about the details. And each time, she felt a little more unsure, a little more pressured, a little more like her own pace was a problem. That's how rushing works. It doesn't scream, it whispers. It doesn't push, it nudges. And one day, her financial advisor called her, excited, almost breathless, telling her about a limited-time opportunity to invest in something that sounded promising. "You have to act now," he said. "It's closing by tomorrow." And she asked for the documents, and he said, "I'll fill them out for you, just sign." And in that moment, she hesitated. Not because she didn't trust him, but because she didn't trust the speed. She had learned over decades that anything worth doing was worth understanding, but the pressure was real. The fear of missing out, the fear of being left behind, the fear of being seen as slow, as incapable, as outdated. So she signed. And later, when things went wrong, when the investment didn't deliver, when the fees piled up, she didn't just feel regret. She felt betrayed by her own silence. She started noticing it everywhere. The pharmacy that changed her medication brand without asking. The insurance company that sent her a renewal notice with a 24-hour deadline. The online portal that logged her out mid-decision. And each time, she felt smaller, not because she was incapable, but because she wasn't given space to be capable. That's the tragedy of rushing. It doesn't just steal time, it steals confidence. It makes you feel like your questions are a burden, like your need for clarity is a flaw, like your pace is a problem. But she wasn't a problem, and neither are you. This chapter is not just her story. It's the story of millions of elders who are rushed into decisions, into silence, into dependence. It's a call to pause, to reflect, to reclaim time as a right, not a luxury. Because when you rush someone, you don't just speed up the process, you slow down their trust, you erode their autonomy, you make them question their worth. And for seniors, who have already given so much, that erosion is not just unfair, it's cruel. So if you're over 60, and someone says, "Just sign, just click, just trust me," pause, ask, read, reflect, because your time is valuable, your clarity is powerful, and your decisions deserve space. You are not slow, you are thoughtful, you are not outdated, you are experienced, you are not a burden, you are a voice that deserves to be heard, fully and without pressure. And the moment you say, "I'll take my time," you begin to reclaim not just your decision-making, but your dignity. They don't lie outright, they just don't explain, and that silence, that vagueness, that deliberate withholding of clarity is not forgetfulness, it's strategy. Because when someone avoids explaining something to you, especially when you're over 60, it's rarely because they think you won't understand. It's often because they don't want you to. They use words like standard procedure, don't worry about the details. It's all taken care of, and those phrases, delivered with a smile or a shrug, are designed to make you feel safe while keeping you in the dark. And slowly, you begin to feel like asking questions is annoying, like needing clarity is a flaw, like trusting your instincts is inconvenient. But it's not. Confusion is not weakness, it's a signal, and anyone who avoids explaining things clearly is using that confusion to their advantage. It happens in hospitals, when doctors speak in acronyms and rush through diagnoses. It happens in banks, when advisors gloss over fees and risks. It happens in families, when children make decisions on your behalf and say, "You wouldn't get it." And each time, you're left nodding, not because you understand, but because you don't want to seem difficult, don't want to slow things down, don't want to admit that you're lost. But being lost is not your fault, and staying silent is not your duty. She remembered the time her son changed her phone plan without asking, said it was better, cheaper, simpler, but never explained what had changed, and when the bill came, it was higher, and when she asked why, he said, "It's complicated, Mom." And that phrase, that dismissal, made her feel small, made her feel like her curiosity was a burden, made her feel like her voice didn't matter. And that's what confusion does. It shrinks you, not because you're incapable, but because someone else decided you didn't need to know. And if you're over 60, you've likely been made to feel like your questions are interruptions, like your desire to understand is resistance, like your need for clarity is a sign of decline. But it's not. It's a sign of strength, of ownership, of dignity. This chapter is a call to reclaim your right to know, to ask, to understand. Because your age does not make you less capable, and your questions deserve answers, not avoidance. And anyone who makes you feel like you're too old to get it is not protecting you, they're controlling you. And the moment you say, "Explain it to me like I'm new," you begin to take back control. Not just of the situation, but of your confidence, your autonomy, your power. They don't shout, they don't threaten, they don't demand. They guilt you, and guilt, especially when it comes from someone you love, someone you've trusted for years, someone who knows your heart, is one of the most powerful tools of quiet control. Because guilt doesn't force you. It convinces you, it whispers in your ear, it wraps itself in memory and obligation and love, and if you're over 60, you've likely felt it more than once. When your child says, "After everything I've done for you." When your sibling says, "You never show up when I need you." When your friend says, "You're being selfish." And those words, delivered with disappointment and emotional weight, make you question your boundaries, your decisions, your right to say no. And slowly, you begin to feel like protecting your peace is betrayal, like asking for space is abandonment, like choosing yourself is cruelty. But it's not. Guilt is not proof of wrongdoing. It's often a tool used to extract obedience without confrontation, and it shows up in the smallest moments. When someone asks for money and says, "You know I wouldn't ask if I didn't need it." When someone wants you to change your will and says, "It's only fair." When someone pressures you to attend an event and says, "You always let me down." And each time, you feel torn. Not because you don't care, but because you care too much, because you've spent your life giving, supporting, sacrificing. And now, when you want to draw a line, you're made to feel like that line is a wall. She remembered the time her daughter asked her to co-sign a loan, said it was just a formality, said it wouldn't affect her, said it was a way to help the family. And when she hesitated, when she asked questions, her daughter cried, said, "I thought you trusted me," said, "I guess I can't count on you." And those words, those tears, those accusations made her feel like she was failing as a mother, like her caution was cruelty, like her concern was betrayal. So she signed, and later, when the payments were missed, when the bank called her, when her credit was damaged, she didn't just feel regret. She felt shame, not because she made a mistake, but because she was made to feel like protecting herself was wrong. And that's what guilt does. It turns love into leverage, it turns history into pressure, it turns care into control. And if you're over 60, you've likely been guilted into saying yes when you wanted to say no, into staying silent when you wanted to speak, into giving more than you had. But you are allowed to say no, to ask for space, to protect your peace, even if it disappoints someone. This chapter is a call to recognize guilt as manipulation, not morality, to understand that your worth is not measured by how much you sacrifice, to remember that love should never feel like a debt. And anyone who makes you feel like you owe them your silence, your money, your time, your choices, is not loving you, they're using you. And the moment you say, I care, but I choose differently, you begin to reclaim not just your boundaries, but your freedom. They don't lock you in a room, they don't cut off your phone, they don't forbid you from seeing people. They isolate you in ways that are softer, subtler, and far more dangerous. And if you're over 60, this kind of isolation often comes disguised as care, as protection, as loyalty. They say, don't tell your kids, they'll just worry. Your friends won't understand. I'm the only one who really gets you. And those words, delivered with warmth and concern, begin to shrink your world. Not with force, but with suggestion. And slowly, you stop sharing, stop reaching out, stop trusting your own circle, because someone has convinced you that your connections are flawed, that your instincts are misguided, that your independence is risky. And it doesn't happen overnight. It happens in moments. When someone intercepts your mail to help, when someone answers your phone so you don't have to. When someone speaks on your behalf at the doctor's office, at the bank, at the family gathering. And each time your voice gets quieter, not because you've lost it, but because someone else keeps speaking louder. She remembered the day her neighbor told her not to mention her financial worries to her daughter. Said, she's too busy. Said, you don't want to be a burden. Said, I'll help you instead. And at first, it felt kind, it felt safe, it felt like someone was finally listening. But over time, she realized she wasn't just being helped, she was being contained. Her daughter stopped calling as often, her friends stopped visiting, and she stopped reaching out. Not because she didn't want to, but because she had been made to feel like her world was better when it was smaller. And that's what isolation does. It doesn't just remove people, it removes options, removes perspective, removes the ability to compare, to question, to choose. And if you're over 60, you've likely been told that privacy is protection, that silence is strength, that dependence is love. But it's not. True care expands your world, not shrinks it. True protection includes other voices, not excludes them. True love encourages independence, not erodes it. This chapter is a call to notice the patterns, the subtle discouragements, the quiet redirections, the moments when someone makes you feel like you're safest when you're alone with them. And anyone who makes you feel like you shouldn't talk to others, shouldn't ask for second opinions, shouldn't share your concerns, is not protecting you. They're positioning themselves as your only option. And the moment you say, I want to hear other voices, you begin to reclaim not just your relationships, but your freedom. They don't ask for repayment directly. They keep score, and that scorecard isn't written down. It's spoken in sighs, in reminders, in subtle emotional debts that accumulate over time. And if you're over 60, you've likely felt it. The weight of someone's generosity turning into leverage, the warmth of someone's help slowly becoming a tool of control. They say, after everything I've done for you, you wouldn't even be here if it weren't for me. I was the only one who showed up. And those words, delivered with emotional gravity, make you feel like your gratitude must be proven through obedience, like your independence is selfish, like your boundaries are betrayal. And slowly, you begin to feel like you owe them, not just thanks, but silence, compliance, loyalty, even when it costs you your peace. It happens in families, when children remind you of the times they drove you to appointments, helped with bills, made sacrifices, and used those memories to justify decisions you didn't agree to. It happens with caregivers, who start with kindness and end with control, saying, I do everything for you, as a way to silence your preferences. It happens with friends, neighbors, even professionals, who turn favors into currency and kindness into contracts. She remembered the time her nephew helped her set up her new phone, spent hours with her, taught her how to use it, made her feel empowered. And then, weeks later, asked her to lend him money, and when she hesitated, he said, "I was there when no one else was." And that sentence, that reminder, that emotional invoice made her feel like saying no would erase all the good he had done. So she said yes, not because she wanted to, but because she felt she had to. And later, when the money wasn't returned, when the relationship soured, when she felt used, she didn't just feel regret. She felt trapped in a cycle of emotional debt. And that's what tracking does. It turns care into currency. It turns help into obligation. It turns love into leverage. And if you're over 60, you've likely been made to feel like your choices must be filtered through someone else's generosity, like your voice must be softened by someone else's sacrifice. But you are allowed to receive help without surrendering autonomy. You are allowed to be grateful without being indebted. You are allowed to say, "Thank you," and still say, "No." This chapter is a call to recognize emotional bookkeeping as manipulation, not morality. 2. Understand that true care doesn't come with a receipt, and true love doesn't demand repayment. And anyone who makes you feel like you owe them your silence, your money, your decisions, is not supporting you, they're controlling you. And the moment you say, "I appreciate what you did, but I choose what's right for me," you begin to reclaim not just your boundaries, but your balance. They don't argue with you, they dismiss you, and dismissal, especially when it comes from someone you love, someone you've trusted for years, someone who claims to care, doesn't feel like conflict. It feels like invisibility. Because when someone brushes off your concerns, when they wave away your feelings, when they label your instincts as overreacting, dramatic, or just a phase, they're not disagreeing with you. They're erasing you, and if you're over 60, this kind of erasure is especially cruel, because it doesn't just silence your voice, it makes you question whether your voice ever mattered. They say, "You're just tired. You're being emotional. It's not a big deal," and those words, delivered with casual tone and confident dismissal, make you second-guess your clarity, your experience, your right to be taken seriously. And slowly, you begin to doubt yourself, not because you're confused, but because someone else keeps telling you that you are. It happens in families, when children say, "You're just lonely," instead of listening to your concerns about being excluded. It happens in hospitals, when doctors say, "It's normal at your age," instead of investigating your symptoms. It happens in financial conversations, when advisors say, "You're worrying too much," instead of explaining the risks. And each time, you're left wondering, am I wrong to feel this way? Am I making too much of it? Should I just stay quiet? But staying quiet is not peace, it's surrender, and you don't owe anyone your silence just because they're uncomfortable with your truth. She remembered the time she told her son she felt unsafe with a new caregiver, said the woman was too controlling, too invasive, too quick to dismiss her preferences, and instead of listening, he said, "You're just being paranoid," said, "You always complain," said, "She's doing her best." And those words, those labels, those refusals to take her seriously, made her feel like her instincts were broken, like her discomfort was irrational, like her voice was a problem. So she stopped speaking up. And later, when the caregiver mishandled her medication, when her routines were disrupted, when her health declined, she didn't just feel betrayed. She felt complicit in her own silence. And that's what dismissal does. It doesn't just ignore you, it trains you to ignore yourself. And if you're over 60, you've likely been made to feel like your concerns are exaggerations, like your emotions are inconvenient, like your instincts are outdated. But they're not. Your instincts are experience speaking, your emotions are wisdom in motion, your concerns are valid, and anyone who makes you feel otherwise is not protecting you, they're silencing you. This chapter is a call to reclaim your emotional truth, to recognize dismissal as a form of control, to remember that your voice matters, even when others try to minimize it. And the moment you say, "I know what I feel and I deserve to be heard," you begin to reclaim not just your confidence, but your clarity. They don't insult you directly. They minimize you, and minimization is one of the quietest forms of control, especially when it's wrapped in politeness, in familiarity, in phrases that sound like help but feel like dismissal. They say, "You wouldn't understand. Let me handle it. You're too old for this." And those words, delivered with a smile or a sigh, chip away at your confidence, not with cruelty, but with condescension. And if you're over 60, You've likely felt it, in the way people speak slower to you, louder to you, simpler to you, not because you asked, but because they decided you needed it. You've felt it when someone takes the remote from your hand, when someone finishes your sentence, when someone makes decisions for you without asking. And each time you feel a little smaller, not because you've changed, but because someone else keeps shrinking your space. And slowly you begin to question your relevance, your authority, your value, not because you've lost it, but because the world around you keeps treating you like you have. It happens in families, when children say, "You don't get how things work now," and dismiss your wisdom. It happens in public, when strangers assume you need help before you've asked. It happens in conversations, when your stories are interrupted, your opinions are brushed aside, your presence is treated like background noise. And each time, you stay silent, not because you agree, but because you're tired of fighting to be seen. She remembered the time her grandson changed her phone settings without asking. Said, "You'll thank me later," said, "This is better for you." And when she tried to explain why she preferred the old setup, he laughed, said, "You're so stuck in your ways." And that laugh, that sentence, that moment made her feel like her preferences were a joke, like her comfort was irrelevant, like her voice was optional. So she stopped insisting. And later, when she missed important messages, when she couldn't navigate the new layout, when she felt disconnected, she didn't just feel frustrated, she felt erased. And that's what minimization does. It doesn't just silence you, it makes you believe that silence is your only option. And if you're over 60, you've likely been made to feel like your opinions are outdated, your choices are questionable, your independence is inconvenient. But it's not. Your age is not incompetence. Your experience is not irrelevance. Your voice is not a burden. This chapter is a call to reclaim your dignity, to recognize subtle disrespect as a red flag, to remind yourself, and others, that you are not small, not fragile, not invisible. You are wise, worthy, and still here, and anyone who makes you feel otherwise is not helping you. They're hiding behind their own discomfort with your strength. And the moment you say, "I have something to say, and I expect to be heard," you begin to rewrite the narrative, not just of your silence, but of your power.